Welcome back, everyone, to Talking Markets. My name is Trevor. I'm here joined with Brian. Brian, how's it going today?
Great, man. It's good to catch up with you. We just had a big FOMC meeting go down, and markets are kind of reacting to it a little bit, huh?
Yeah, yeah, let's talk about it. So, the FOMC meeting pretty much just took place. And, there's a lot of rhetoric that I think Powell has to be extremely careful about. And so he said words like, there could be more hikes that could happen and things like that. There's a lot of that rhetoric in the speech. But overall, it looks like Powell is not going to increase interest rates really for the rest of the year. It's looking like so the market is looking pretty bullish in that regard. But he also hinted to the fact that there could be interest rate hikes starting next year as well. So he also noted that policy is well into restrictive territory and noted that the balance of risk between doing too much or too little on inflation are close to balanced right now. So overall, that's looking really good. That there could possibly be no more further interest rate hikes. In the foreseeable close future, let's just say. So overall, that was pretty bullish today, and Bitcoin, just kind of reacted a little bit here, going from 38,400 all the way up to around 38,000. 900 here. So pretty close to 39K on the reaction to that news. So overall, pretty bullish.
Yeah, and which means it's another year and a half high, which is notable too. So
Yeah, 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 definitely. And overall, the market right now in the past week is still looking pretty green. There are a lot of big gainers. Of course, Terra Classic is having a phantom pump right now. It's up 88% in the past week. We also have some big losers as well this week, though. We have Blur down 21%, Pyth down 27%. So there are a couple of losers this week as well. And we could possibly see that the market is kind of steaming off here from the rally that we've had, over the past, month or so. Now, speaking of, possible bullish news, though, is that MicroStrategy doubles down on Bitcoin. So again, purchasing more Bitcoin, this time for $600 million worth. And it looks like they bought 16,000. So, it's pretty crazy to see, Michael Saylor is just continuously bullish on Bitcoin, it seems, and MicroStrategy purchased 16,130 Bitcoin just in November again. So that's also bullish news. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges, which you can see here in red, and the supply outside of exchanges of Bitcoin, which you can see in blue here. And we can see that the amount of Bitcoin that is, outside of exchanges is continuing to grow. Just month on month, it's continuing to grow, versus the supply on exchanges is continuing to fall. So there's a couple reasons why this could be. It could be that, holders of Bitcoin have a long-term bias of it and that they think that the price of it's going to increase in the future and they don't really want to trade it right now, right? Because if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, it's more likely that you're wanting to currently trade it. So that could be one reason. Another reason is the Binance being found guilty. So possibly some people are a little bit scared to have their coins on exchanges. So that could also be a factor. And then there's also the possibility of a spot uh, Bitcoin ETF being approved in the States within a few months or so. So that's also probably why most people are bullish with that there. Last thing I wanted to leave off on today is the IRS proposal to track your Uniswap transactions. So, yes, the IRS has actually announced that they are trying to establish an initiative. So, this is just something that they proposed. It's not something that's fully released just yet. So, they proposed this idea uh, basically to establish new tax rules for the treatment of cryptocurrency providers. Now, specifically, the IRS is seeking to amend the law to expand the definition of brokers. This would be to include nearly all crypto service providers, including decentralized exchanges or DEXs and wallet providers. So this is really big news, and overall quite scary for the US market, considering that it would basically mean that DEXs would then be considered centralized exchanges because these dexes would, from what I can understand, is they would have to acquire information from every single person that's trading on their exchange. So they would have to have information such as, IDs or, birth dates, social security numbers, etc., which would kind of really go against the idea of a decentralized exchange. So just something kind of scary, something to note and maybe to think about. I know there's also a couple of different initiatives to also stand against this and protest against this proposal as well. So yeah, big news today.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all of that, Trevor. Particularly the supply and exchanges trend that's just continuing to be pretty staggering. We talked about it earlier today on our This Week in Crypto stream, and it just looks like there's no end in sight in terms of Bitcoin moving to self-custody. And I think for the indefinite future, that's a good thing. At some point, I always wonder, if let's say we get to 2% of Bitcoin on exchanges, does that potentially leave us in a position where there's not enough Bitcoin actually circulating,
Right.
which
For
could
people to
kind of
buy.
dry up the utility a little bit of the network. So there's kind of we're reaching unprecedented territory where we're potentially reaching a point where so many people are hodling or holding compared to actually trading actively that there could be some detrimental impact at some point. But I don't think we're anywhere near it now. It's just something to think about. So if we look at the last week here and we take a look at kind of the mixed results of the crypto markets, we see that Bitcoin is up moderately, up about 2.1%. I think the news that from the FOMC and Powell aided that a little bit. And then we look at a few outliers. We've got Rune, we have Injective, Stacks, and Celestia, among some others that are rising, but you can see that the markets have kind of tapered off a little bit. Still up significantly since mid-October when everything really started to rally, but it's been more of a mixed bag where obviously sentiment metrics and further analysis in particular projects are paying off for those who are doing the research. But I get the sense that maybe the bull rally for altcoins in particular has kind of come to a halt. And now we're going to see how whales react to the actual news of interest rates being unchanged, which should theoretically be good and lend to the higher probability of Bitcoin hitting 40K soon and altcoins following suit. Um, but I think it's something to keep an eye on here where we've started to see a little bit of stagnation in a lot of altcoins. Another thing to keep in mind is the huge gains that we've seen across the board for crypto, the S&P 500, and even gold. Uh, all three have had huge months in November, particularly the S&P, which nearly went up 11% in a single month, when typically on average the S&P goes up 7 to 8% per year. So it went up, you know, 40% more in a month than we would normally see in a full year on average for the S&P 500. That's big news and part of the reason why Powell is um, still sounding a bit hawkish, even though he didn't change the interest rates this time around. Also note gold. I mean, up at 2064, that's the highest we've seen in quite some time. If we go back to 2020 or so, no, it's even surpassed the price in 2020. If we go back to 2018, yeah, I mean, we're beyond 5 year highs here for gold, and that's significant too. So, uh, precious metals are being valued heavily. Crypto obviously is often referred to as digital gold, and as people continue to go into alternate fiat options, I wouldn't be surprised if crypto follows suit the way gold has really surged. And then another thing I wanted to note, even upon refreshing this page, it doesn't look like the FOMC and Powell are being talked about very significantly right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the next few hours it starts to change a little bit, but you can see the social dominance is not nearly at the level it was, the last time we had a big Powell talk on November 1st, 1 month ago. So The crowd doesn't seem to be reacting to it too much. So even though we're seeing a moderate price rise, this tells me it isn't really a direct impact from the Powell speech, for what it's worth, at least not yet. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on is just the whale activity right now, which still looks a bit concerning. We look at sharks and whales for Bitcoin holding anywhere between 10 to 10,000 BTC, and they have risen in the last couple of weeks, but the downtrend is still evident. We go back to early July, the past 5 months or so, give or take, and it has declined a little bit in terms of the collective holdings of this group, despite prices, especially since mid-October, looking like that. So we still have to be a bit cautious about the key stakeholders for Bitcoin being a bit shy about accumulating right now. The same goes for Tether and USD coin. Oftentimes, if we see Bitcoin going down, that means stable coins are going up. But according to this, there's actually a lot of money moving back into fiat and away from crypto altogether, because Tether has clearly had a big downtrend in the last 5+ months. And USD coin really started its decline about 4 months ago. So they're all going down. Whoops, I didn't mean to drag that, but it doesn't matter. The point is, we are absolutely seeing less key stablecoins and key Bitcoin held by the top key stakeholders right now. And that makes us a bit concerned about the viability of a huge bull run coming up around the corner. So let's be mindful of that. And other than that, I think we have a lot of positive news, Trevor. And I think that going into the weekend, we may see a bit of at least a short-term uptick from this news released today from the U.S. Fed.
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be really interesting to see how this is going to, turn out.
Absolutely. So we'll be back probably next week, I think, talking more
Yep.
about how everything turned out. And in the meantime, Trevor, thanks as always for joining.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks again. See you guys.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.